The Gaza ceasefire agreement. A new beginning or just the easy part? Hello everyone. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most significant events in recent Middle Eastern history, the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Gaza, and the exchange of hostages and prisoners that has given people on both sides a brief moment of relief and hope. But we're also going to go beyond the news headline. We'll look at the language used to describe this event, the vocabulary that helps us understand how journalists express emotions, diplomacy, and hope through words. The background. For years, the conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza has caused immense suffering on both sides. Civilians have been caught in the middle, and the Gaza Strip, home to over 2 million people, has faced severe destruction, poverty, and instability. After 2 long years of fighting, the world has been calling for peace. Finally, this week, a ceasefire was announced. A ceasefire, as you may know, means a temporary stop to fighting, usually while political leaders try to negotiate a more permanent peace. This agreement was not just about stopping the violence, it also included a humanitarian exchange, an exchange of hostages and prisoners. The exchange. According to reports, Hamas, the militant group controlling Gaza, returned all living Israeli hostages. These hostages had been held in Gaza for months, separated from their families, living in fear and uncertainty. In return, Israel freed nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees from Israeli jails. For many Palestinian families, it was a long-awaited reunion. Fathers, mothers, and children coming home after years behind bars. However, the story also has a tragic side. Not all hostages survived. The bodies of several deceased Israelis have not yet been returned, leaving families without closure. The negotiation. This historic exchange did not happen overnight. It was part of a larger plan negotiated and coordinated by U.S. President Donald Trump and supported by several regional powers: Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States. The peace summit took place in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, a symbolic location that has hosted many peace talks in the past. There, world leaders signed a declaration supporting a ceasefire deal aimed at ending 2 years of war and beginning the long process of rebuilding Gaza, a region that has been described as in ruins. Trump called the deal a historic dawn for the Middle East. Historic dawn. Understanding the phrase. Let's pause for a moment to look at that phrase, historic dawn. In English, the word dawn literally means the moment when light first appears in the sky before sunrise, the beginning of a new day. So, when President Trump says this is a historic dawn, he's using a metaphor. He means this is the beginning of something new and positive after a long, dark period. In this case, a period of war and suffering. The word historic means something that will be remembered in history, something very important or significant. So together, historic dawn means the start of a new and important era that people will remember for generations. For example, when astronauts first landed on the moon, that was a historic dawn for humanity, the start of a new chapter in space exploration. A new era begins. Another headline used a similar expression: one era ends in Gaza and another begins. This phrase has a poetic and hopeful tone. It means that one period, the era of war and violence, is ending, and another period, hopefully one of peace and rebuilding, is beginning. We use expressions like this in everyday English too. For example, when someone changes jobs, we might say, one chapter ends and another begins. When a couple gets married, it's the start of a new era in their lives. When a country achieves independence, people say, a new era has dawned. In all these examples, the meaning is about transition, moving from one phase of life to another, with the hope that the next one will be better. The challenges ahead. But of course, in the real world, things are not always as hopeful as the headlines sound. Even though there was celebration in both Israel and Palestine after the exchange, many challenges remain. A ceasefire is just a pause in violence. It's not yet peace. There are still serious questions. How and when will Israeli troops withdraw completely from Gaza? Will Hamas agree to disarm, to give up its weapons? And who will govern Gaza in the future? Hamas has said it will not give up its weapons unless a Palestinian state is officially recognized. It also rejected the idea of Gaza being ruled by any foreign government. So while one era may have ended, the future of Gaza is still uncertain. The easy part. A warning. Another headline summed up this challenge perfectly. Trump's hostage deal was the easy part. At first, that might sound strange. How could anything about this conflict be easy? But the meaning here is metaphorical. The phrase, the easy part, means the part of a process that is less difficult compared to what comes next. It doesn't mean that the ceasefire or the negotiations were simple. It just means that, compared to the next steps, rebuilding Gaza, maintaining peace, and solving political disagreements, this first step was relatively easy. We often use this expression in daily life too. For example, getting into university was the easy part. Now I have to pass all my exams. Starting the company was the easy part. Now we have to make a profit. Running the marathon was the easy part. Recovering took weeks. So the headline, Trump's hostage deal was the easy part, reminds us that the hardest challenges are still ahead. The power of vocabulary. In news, one thing that stands out in all of these headlines is how carefully language is used to influence our understanding of events. Journalists don't just report facts, they choose words that frame the story emotionally. Words like historic, dawn, era, and easy part carry connotations of hope, change, and challenge. By studying vocabulary from real news stories, like BBC Learning English does, we can understand how the media communicates complex emotions and ideas in just a few words. For example, historic dawn, hope and optimism after darkness. One era ends, another begins, transition and renewal. The easy part, warning that greater challenges lie ahead. These short phrases capture big ideas, and they show how powerful language can be in shaping our perception of world events. Rebuilding trust and stability. Beyond words, the real test for Israel and Gaza will be whether they can build trust and maintain stability in the months ahead. Rebuilding Gaza will take enormous resources, financial aid, construction materials, and international support. Homes, hospitals, and schools have been destroyed. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced. Israel, too, faces pressure from its citizens who want security and from the international community, which expects it to support long-term peace efforts. Meanwhile, the political situation inside both territories remains fragile. Any small incident could easily trigger new violence, threatening the ceasefire. That's why many analysts say that this agreement, while historic, is still just the first step, the easy part, in a very long and difficult journey toward lasting peace. Lessons for language learners. For English learners, this story also teaches an important lesson about how to analyze news headlines. Headlines are short, often just a few words, but every word carries weight. When you see a headline like, ceasefire declared, historic peace deal signed, or new era begins in Gaza, you can practice thinking about what emotion or message those words are meant to communicate. You can ask yourself, is the tone hopeful or cautious? Is it focusing on the positive side or warning about challenges? What images or feelings do the words create in your mind? This is not just vocabulary learning, it's also about critical thinking and understanding media language. A glimpse of hope. Despite the difficulties, there are signs of hope. For the first time in years, families on both sides are reunited. In Gaza, children are returning to schools that had been closed. In Israel, families are lighting candles and praying for peace. International aid is beginning to flow into Gaza again, and reconstruction projects are slowly starting. Of course, no one expects peace to come overnight, but moments like this, when people celebrate not destruction, but release and return, show that progress, however small, is possible. That's why many are calling this moment a historic dawn, because after years of darkness, even a small light can feel like the beginning of a new day. Looking ahead, the next stages of this process will test the strength of the agreement. Negotiators will have to discuss the timeline for troop withdrawals, the future government structure in Gaza, the role of international peacekeepers, and how to ensure security and justice for both sides. Each of these issues is complex and politically sensitive. There will be disagreements, setbacks, and moments of tension. But as one headline said, one era ends, another begins. And perhaps for the people of Gaza and Israel, this could finally be the dawn of a new era, one that replaces fear with hope and war with dialogue. Vocabulary recap. Before we finish, let's quickly review the key vocabulary we've discussed. Ceasefire, a temporary stop to fighting, often before peace talks. Hostage, someone captured and held by force, usually to demand something. Prisoner exchange, when two sides release captives at the same time. Historic dawn, the start of a new and important period in history. Era, a long period of time marked by certain events or conditions. One era ends, another begins. A phrase meaning a major change or transition. The easy part, the simpler stage before more difficult challenges come. Declaration, a formal statement or agreement between countries. Summit, a high-level meeting between leaders of nations. Rebuilding, both physical reconstruction and emotional recovery after conflict. Final thoughts, language, and politics often meet in moments like this. When leaders speak of a historic dawn or a new era, they are not just describing facts, they are creating hope. Whether that hope becomes reality depends on actions, not just words. The ceasefire in Gaza is a fragile beginning, but every beginning has to start somewhere. As learners, we can take inspiration from this. Just like peace, language learning is a process. You start with small steps, a few new words, a few new sentences, and gradually build toward fluency. In both cases, patience, persistence, and communication are the keys to success. Conclusion. So, to sum up, the Gaza ceasefire agreement and the hostage exchange have brought a moment of light after years of darkness. President Trump and several nations helped broker the deal, calling it a historic dawn for the Middle East. But while hostages are home and guns are silent for now, the hardest part, building lasting peace, is still ahead. As one headline said, Trump's hostage deal was the easy part. And as another put it, one era ends, another begins. The hope is that this new era will be one of peace, rebuilding, and reconciliation, not just for Gaza and Israel, but for the whole region. Thank you for listening.